I'll move this a little bit closer so you can see both of us. Okay, so I think we are live now.
Yes.
So, hello. We're gonna start. I think Rebecca, did you want to start us off with kind of our theme and what we're going to be talking about tonight?
Yeah, so my name's Rebecca. I'm at Suspirian Voids on Instagram. And today we are going to be talking about just like the full moon in Aquarius, just kind of dig into the astrology of it, like the significance and the do's and don'ts of the ritual, and of course, a little tarot exercise. Do you guys
Perfect.
introduce yourselves?
Huh? Do you want to introduce yourself first?
Oh,
Yeah.
I am Queen B, the other Queen B. Um, and I am on Instagram as well, but I am on Instagram as Love and Light Services. And that's about it for me.
Okay. Hi, I'm Coleraine. My pronouns are they, them. I am just at Coleraine with an underscore on Instagram. And I will give it back to Rebecca so we can hear about the astrology report for this full moon, this blue moon.
Okay, well, today we do have an opposition. So every time we have a full moon occurring, this full moon is going to take place officially starting tomorrow. And with that opposition, we have the sun in Leo, which is ruled by the sun, in contrast to the moon, the two luminaries, where we have it ruled, I mean, in Aquarius, which is ruled by Saturn. So in this case, what we can definitely be expecting under this full moon is a lot of release because the full moon typically represents like of uh, just releasing, like letting go, with Leo being the sign of like shining light in terms of like expression, loyalty. With the contrast of Aquarius, we have that sign of humanitarianism. So, with that being said, this transit is going to be asking us to really let go to what no longer is serving us in terms of kind of also practicing like detachment. So, in that sequence, we also have Mercury retrograde in that effect as well. So, with full moons, some energies can be a little bit charged as it is squaring Pluto, I believe. Yes, so Pluto is a planet that is transformation. And that right there represents the collective. So when we have a square transit in astrology, that right there can kind of set some like conflict and tension. But because Mercury retrograde, that kind of like shakes things up a bit. Because that is in Leo, that also does give an effect of like conflict as well with that square effect of Pluto. And we also have Mars and Gemini with the conjunction of Jupiter. So when we have Mars, the planet of destruction, mixed in with the planet of expansion of Jupiter, that right there, both in Gemini, in effect with Leo, I believe is a sextile. Yes. So that right there can kind of give some ease, but also it can also give this impression to kind of have this a lot of like, I would say like a stirring part, I would say, because that effect can definitely be enhancing that like conflict. But with Aquarius and this sign in particular, because this sign is really always embodying that like uniqueness, that right there always tends to just really ask us to like kind of shed light onto that, to really embody that energy of letting go, but also in a manner where we can really embody and prioritize ourselves. So this is a good time to really set those intentions, to know, to also like embody that energy of the self, but also in terms of this manner, it is also important to highlight relationships as well with that Mercury effect within Leo. And because we also have Saturn in retrograde, that right there kind of also asserts that dominance to really like think before speaking and just kind of like taking actions with that. But with the sun and Leo is always just always going to be asking us to really like embody ourselves, like our expressions and like who we are and whatnot. And then with that Aquarius, that is kind of solidifying that. But as a collective, we can definitely experience, just to reiterate, a lot of like conflict within that, a lot of tension. But this is all going to be to kind of like release that, to kind of make room for new beginnings and whatnot when we have the new moon followed by in a few weeks. I believe so. But yeah. So Queen Bee, would you like to go ahead and kind of provide the significance, some like do's and don'ts, some like
Oh,
ritual practices?
sure. So this moon is the surrogate moon, and I did some research. And this fish is actually as old as dinosaurs. So the fish has been around a long, long time, and it can get very, very large, and it can live to get very, very old. So what it means for us as a collective is set goals. Like if you write in a journal, this is a good time to set goals for the long term. Things that are going to be like kind of not set in stone. I hate to use that word because set in stone is just bad for me. But something that you kind of want to be permanent. Goals that you want to be permanent. So write down those kind of goals. And this moon is also good for abundance, because this is the time when Native Americans went fishing, and so it was like plentiful abundance. So this is a good time for get out your green candles and those herbs to bring the money in. Next month is going to be a great month for harvest. But anyways, focus on this month. Yes, and then also with it being the blue moon is for healing. So if you need healing, it's a great time for those blue candles. I got some blue candles, and all the healing herbs that you can put on the candles. Um, One good herb that I like to use hibiscus for healing. And what I used to do the baths, but you don't want to clog up your drain. So what I have done is I bought those little the tea it's like a tea bag, but it's reusable one, and then you put your herbs in there, and then you can put that in the tub. So I find that very like it's very good if you don't want to plug up your drain with that. And it's a good time to do a money boil. So most money boils, you just put bay leaves, oranges. Sometimes some people use pineapple, cinnamon sticks. You can actually drink it because everything going in it is drinkable. It's actually good if you just add sugar to it. It's a great drink, personally, for me. And you just boil it. What you do is you boil it, and then you walk around your house with it, and then that'll bring the money in. But I strongly suggest that you sage your house first. So sage your house first, whatever sage that you use. If you're doing the boil and you also want to do it for healing, then I would use dragon blood sage, because dragon blood sage is good for healing. So use that, and then whatever sage that you prefer. And then you take that, sage your house, and then you do the boil, and then you walk around with the boil, and then you can light the candles. I personally prefer, just me personally,
Hmm.
um, to do the candles like the first quarter of the moon, and then because after, like if I start it tomorrow, then it's kind of like it's going out. The moon is phasing out, so I like to start it kind of before then. But I have traditionally at first I was doing it at when the full moon started. So you can actually do it when the full moon starts, and it's not gonna hurt anything.
Yeah. And I feel, since we were just talking about the astrology of this moon, what you said about longevity and abundance, that relates so much to this axis that's happening astrologically, which is Leo and Aquarius, which are fixed signs. So that's about, energy that exists in our collective for the long term. It's stuff that is going to have an impact on all of us for a long time. So I really liked that ties in with the fish.
And thank you everybody for joining us. I can't read everybody's comments, but thank you everybody.
Yeah. I had a question for you, Rebecca,
Yeah.
about the astrology.
I had a question too. I forgot what it was.
Okay, maybe you can think of it while I ask. But I had noticed a couple days ago that there's a lot of mutable energy going on, and there's a lot of squares happening with Venus and Jupiter and Saturn. And I wanted to know how that would be affecting this full moon that is in those fixed signs, because fixed signs can overrule that mutable energy. What do you think as our astrologer? With that energy, if somebody wants to work with the square off between Jupiter and Saturn, because that's going to be giving us lots of lessons, right? So
Yeah, 100%. So in terms of those like squaring effects with that like mutable energy, a lot of like mutable energy comes from the signs of Virgo, Pisces, and Gemini and Sagittarius. So those signs in particular, especially what I believe, yeah, Mars in Gemini, Jupiter in Gemini, Saturn retrograde in Pisces, and Neptune in Pisces. So those transits are kind of going to be encouraging just that energy to really like be like vocal but to also be very adaptive. That's something that mutable signs really embody and naturally do. So with that effect with that in effect with the squaring placements of like the fixed signs in particular, because fixed signs are really just like its name, they really are fixated on like belief and like what they like believe for and like what they like project. So with the Sun in Leo, Moon in Aquarius, and the Mercury retrograde in Leo, along with I actually forgot the mutable placement of Virgo Venus. But yeah, in contrast with that and how it can kind of take charge with the fixed modalities, that right there can really kind of set like a notion of like conflict. I think that right there is like a huge emphasis on that, and I think that in all can really demonstrate this effect of, again, adaptability, but also kind of, um, what's the word? Kind of just like embodying that towards the self. So I believe that with that, like, opposition, that is a really interesting effect. So I really feel like with that heavy emphasis with Saturn and retrograde, with that Pisces in particular, I think that right there, especially with Venus in the picture, that right there is an opposition with the Venus and Virgo. So that right there is kind of going to be setting that foundation of just ensuring that we are kind of being mindful of like relationships, whether that be like platonic or like familial, romantic. That right there, in contrast with the fixed modalities of the sun and moon opposition, that right there can kind of bring us into like introspection but also into a reflective state, where that right there can really give this impression of like, okay, yes, we do have to consider like our close circles or just like those around us and our surroundings, but also setting those like boundaries, but also kind of mastering that sense of detachment. So I really feel like that is going to be something that we can be experiencing as a collective. Perhaps many have already been experiencing that within the self. And it is important to also consider like where these are taking effect in your birth chart. Like for me, for example, I am a Scorpio rising and I am a Leo sun. So with the full moon in Aquarius, I am going to be experiencing a lot of change within like my relationships, especially in the fifth house, which is ruled by Leo. So wherever you have Aquarius in your chart or any of the following signs that I did mention, you can also look into that as your birth chart just to see what you can kind of get a glimpse of where you can be experiencing these transits and how that can be affecting you. But yeah, I believe that's all for the astrology bit. Is there anything you guys want to kind of add on to that?
I have a question. I wanted to know, like you said, Leo and Aquarius. Like, is there anything that, especially because the sun is going to be in Leo and the moon is going to be in Aquarius, so is there anything that people that are under those two sun signs, is there anything in particular that they might want to like take heed to, or
Yeah, so the signs that are going to be heavily affected mainly are the fixed signs, which is Aquarius, Leo, Scorpio, and Taurus. So the fixed signs are going to kind of be undergoing, I would say, a lot more charged feelings in terms of like what I discussed earlier, especially with like the conflict and tension, just kind of like building up these like feelings to kind of let go. So it's like maybe these premonitions or like introspective thoughts and occurrences are kind of towering over each other to really release and to make room for new beginnings and just to make peace with that level of detachment. So I really feel like the fixed signs in particular, placements exact, especially sun, moon, and rising, and of course, any other planets that are transiting that within your birth chart, your natal chart. So that right there for sure is going to be something highly affected where you can be experiencing that. But yeah, so for example, because I am a Leo sun, I can be experiencing that like tension with that full moon because that is like the sister sign. But if you are a fixed moon, that is going to be undergoing like a lot of introspection through like your emotional state as the moon rules that. So with the full moon, I think, yeah, it's a blue moon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so with that in mind, especially with that, this full moon is going to be illuminating a lot of feelings and like thoughts and just the collective can really be experiencing that. So you can definitely be seeing a lot of things for what they are. Maybe a lot of realizations are occurring as well. So I think for sure with that sign of Aquarius, it is also asking us to really embody that energy for the self, but also for the sake and the better of like humanity and all because that's something that Leo energy kind of really embodies but also Aquarius because Leo they that's not in particular rules the heart, so it's always going to be like headstrong, very determined, and with that contrast of Aquarius, the Aquarius is the sign of humanitarianism, but also innovation. So that right there can really spark this notion of like, you know what, I am going to be honest, be truthful, and just kind of master again like that detachment. So that's something that Sun and Aquarius placements can be experiencing in particular. But yes, it's not just those two signs; it's also other fixed placements as well. Of course, like Scorpio and Taurus.
Okay.
Yeah, thanks for that really
Thank
thorough
you.
response,
Yes.
Rebecca.
I appreciate that. That answered my full question.
So I have a question for you, Queen B.
Okay.
If somebody wants to work more with the sturgeon, do you know any like practices that specifically relate to the sturgeon, or is it just more of like what you're talking about with the longevity?
I don't know because once again I don't do the animal thing, but
Okay.
but I know they're bottom feeders, so they do eat they eat other animals, some of them. So if you want to, I know they eat snails. People probably don't want to eat snails, so maybe if you're French, I'm sorry for that statement. I'm very sorry. But Americans feel a little differently about snails.
So I guess what you're saying there is like kind of living minimally or
Yes.
something like that, like taking into account like the little things in life. I can see that.
Yes, that would definitely be the gist of that. Like I said, there's not really a diet for this one that I would suggest, unless, like I said, you're into that sort of thing. But for this one, I think the base of this animal is that they're very majestic. Like out here in the States, you can't even fish for them. Like it's illegal. They're protected because they're going to become extinct. So I think, and they used to be considered like a royal fish in Britain. I don't know if they're still considered a royal fish in Britain. So, like I think of this like majestic creature that's protected. So I think it like protect your energy, and think about something that is going to be like I said, stable if you're writing in your journal. And I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, it totally does.
Okay.
Yeah, I felt like you started to touch on the sturgeon, but I wanted a little more. I felt like you had more in you on that.
Yeah, I
did. I also have one last question, Brittany, because I know you were, or Queen Bee, sorry, you were focused on the blue moon as well. So, have you ever done anything in the past for a blue moon, or do you know? Could you tell us a little bit more? Like,
I have done for myself. I have done like a bath, and I put these blue like floating candles in the bath, and then I'm trying to think of the herbs that I put in there. I just basically what I did at the times I just looked up herbs that were for healing, and that's what I added to the bath. So I don't have a particular recipe for the healing. Like I have particularly recipe like you want to do love or something like that. But for healing, I haven't perfected it yet. So I don't want to give someone, something that I have not perfected.
Yeah. Well, I also feel like healing could be so specific too.
Yeah, it also depends on what you're healing as well. So, yeah, so the candles in the bath don't have to have the name on them, but the candles that you like set out, write your name. You can write it in the wick, like going up towards the candle. Or I just sometimes like if I just buy like a glass candle, I just write it on the side of the candle, going up towards the wick. So just little candle kind of one-on-one. Anything that you want coming towards you, like you want healing, you write towards the wick, and anything that you want going away from you, like if you want trying to get rid of a curse or you're trying to get rid of a person or whatever you're trying to get rid of, you want it going away from the wick. So you start up here and then you write down. So that's just
some practical magic. Awesome.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you totally
Okay,
did.
okay.
I just know that the blue moon is like a rare event, so
yes, it's
definitely keep that in mind if you're going to work with this full moon.
It is definitely it's a great moon for healing, and pay attention to your candle wick. So I did a candle, and I had a collective candle, like a big one for everyone that was in my spell, and it like the candle didn't melt all the way, so I knew that someone had like some kind of like tumor or something, and it was me. It was me. It wasn't cancerous though, but so yeah, it was me. So careful when your healing candle burns. Look at the wick and see if it all burns out, and that can tell you a lot about what's going on. And also, if you don't know how to read your candle, you can take it to someone like me, or I don't know. Can you read candle wick? Like, do you know how to do that?
I haven't tried, but I feel like I would love to try it out if someone ever brought me something like that.
Okay.
Can you tell what this means? I love to do interpretations.
And Rebecca, do you know how to read the candle wicks? Like when after the candle burns out, can you read the wick?
So I would say yes, I do have experience with that. I do know how to read flames
Okay.
and art, for example. I don't know why I thought of like cord cutting. That's actually like a good practice if you want to do that for the full moon too. Especially this one, it's like the most important this year. Cord cutting. It's something you can definitely do as a little ritual. You don't necessarily it is really familiar, not familiar. It is really known to kind of do it with another person in mind, but it doesn't necessarily always have to do that. It can just be with set with any intention that you have to kind of get rid of. And under the full moon, because it's about letting go to make room for new beginnings and new chapters, you can also do that. And as you do that, you can read and interpret the flame and like the flicker, all of that good stuff when it comes to like candle work in particular, especially with kind of like reading the wicks. All of that is good stuff. I think there are some great resources online somewhere. I can't remember at the top of my head any links or whatever. But yes, that is something that I am familiar with and something that I really engage with. Yeah, firework is something you can also do. But in terms of like kind of working with the moon, depending on like your chart ruler or any like stelliums or like whatever modality that is kind of more so kind of like taking over your chart, you can also work with that element, for example, as well. Like me, I can do fire magic or like firework in terms of like candle work or whatnot because I do have a lot of heavy fire influence. So that's something people you can also kind of look into if you are kind of interested in that. Or, for example, say you want to work with like water, you can do any type of thing with any set intention in mind to kind of help enhance that, to utilize it as a tool to work under this full moon.
Yeah, I like that you bring up the elements because there's the sturgeon, which is of course water related. And then we have the Leo, which is fire, and Aquarius, which is air. But the unique thing about Aquarius is that it's the water bearer. So definitely emphasizing that water influence. And I like that we've been talking about elements because that's so important to astrology. So
yeah, definitely.
perfect. So are you guys ready for me to do the activity that I have to teach for tarot? Okay, so that's what I was just doing. If you saw me like shuffling the cards out and separating them. So this is a technique that was taught to me by my dear friend Lexi, who is at Light Wands on multiple platforms. So if you guys want to check her out, definitely go and look. She makes a bunch of super cool tarot content. It's kind of alternative and very educational as well. But she taught me this, so I wanted to pay homage to her. But for the Aquarius moon, since Aquarius is a sign of individuality, being yourself, really standing apart from the crowd, when it comes to tarot, we like to see ourselves in the tarot. The tarot is a mirror for us to be able to engage with who we are and, you know, the truth of other people as well. And so the way that you can do that is working with a signifier. And a signifier is just going to really humanize either you or a person that you're asking about. I also will put the disclaimer that I personally don't like to read on people, like, you know, nosing into their business. So if you're going to be reading about people, always ask questions that relate to your specific relationship with them, and that's just my personal ethics. You can follow it if you want, but so what I did when I was separating the deck is I took out all of the pip cards. And if you're not familiar with tarot, that's okay. But the pip cards are the ace through 10 in each suit. So those are part of the journey. They're not really talking about specific people. And I left in the deck the major arcana, which are the 22 cards that are the keys or the like hero's journey within the tarot. And I left in the court cards. So the court cards are in a typical tarot pack, that's going to be the page, the knight, the queen, and the king. Some of the decks have different variations on those, but you'll pretty much know that they're human or like characterized cards. So what this does is it leaves us with a set of 38 cards that are all human representations. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to shuffle this newly separated tarot. Tonight I'm using the Blood Moon Tarot because we are doing a moon themed video. And so I'm going to actually pull a card for each one of us so you can get to know us a little bit better. I'm going to start by interpreting the card for each of us, and then I'll kind of let you guys piggyback off of my interpretation and elaborate or go deeper. And as each of you talk about yourselves, I'll hold up the cards so you guys who are at home can see the imagery on the card, and potentially that art will be enhanced by their description. So let's see how this works. So I'm going to get into the zone for reading and just bring in the guides of love, compassion, wisdom, truth, and alignment, and clear the space so that we can have an honest and good read. So this first card is for Queen Bee. Ooh, and you got the Tower, which I really love the depiction of the Tower in this deck because it's someone who's wearing a totem on their head. So this kind of, I feel like, is talking about you've been introducing the totem animals or like those nature spirits that are associated with the moon. So I feel like that's talking about your power as a witch or as a, you know, being able to practice however you define yourself. But the Tower also talks about being able to go into the spirit realm through revelation. So I feel like Queen Bee, a power or a strength that you have is that you can work with chaos in a way and be able to reach into the spirit realm with a presence that allows you to bring through information back into the 3D realm, the human realm, with truth, with impact. It's something that, maybe other people might overlook, but because you're able to like direct your focus in a way, it creates awakening. So when I've done studies of the Tower card is always about awakening our systems and our structures changing. And so Queen Bee is actually the one who organized this group. So I feel like the Tower is showing that Queen Bee has the gift for creating new systems and bringing in new ways of being and new structures. And like a system is something that we operate within. It already has its like kind of codes or how would you call it? Like a structure. That's what it is. So I hope I interpreted that.
No,
well
that
you.
definitely resonates. I can definitely like. I don't even know how to follow that because you said everything that I would think to that. I think that there's a lot of new beginnings that's happening personally in my life right now. And the Tower card also represents, like if it's in the regular deck, it represents like new beginnings and a new start. And sometimes things, when they start off like really rough. Like the regular Tower card is like things are falling out the tower, and it seems like it's kind of all coming together, but it's all coming together, and it's all falling, but it's all falling together. And I think kind of like what you said, there's a lot of stuff that is like manifesting right now for me, and I think it's gonna be good. Like it seems like it may be like a rough start, but I think it's gonna be good.
Yeah, that's that working with the chaos. Like when things are kind of moving around you. I've heard some people talk about doing stuff like chaos magic, like where if you're in the middle of a ritual and like you knock something over, it's like, oh, well, that wasn't meant to be part of the ritual, or maybe I can read like how this thing spilled or whatever. And I feel like that's totally, working with it, going with the flow. I also do feel like your ancestry is really important to you with your work, and you get a lot of power from your connection to your ancestors, because there's like faces all over the totem that's on this person's head.
I didn't get to really see.
There's like hands coming out and reaching towards their face.
We'll
show you in a second.
Yeah, this is a lot different from the traditional card. So yeah, I can definitely see what you're saying. And then it definitely seems like there's like a new start, like a new beginning, and like just like you said, kind of like finding the answers from my ancestors, because I go to them a lot.
Yeah.
And like even when I do spell work for other people, I have to have permission for them. Like if like the ancestors are telling me, yeah, I can't do that for you, then I'm not gonna do it. Like it's not worth the money. I'm just not gonna do. Like there's some spell work that I don't do at all because it's just, to me, it's not ethical. Like it's not from my ethics. Not that it's like right or wrong or that kind of stuff, but just for my own personal ethics, I'm like, yeah, I'm not doing that.
And Tower is totally about ethics too, because it's about the structures and the systems that we live within. And that card is actually, in my opinion, ruled by Aquarius. Some people put different associations on the cards, but it's very interesting. You got the card that's ruled by Aquarius on there. I know some people say that the star is ruled by Aquarius, but I associate this Tower right here with the Aquarius energy. So let's tune into Rebecca and get a signifier for her. I thought one flew out for a second, but it didn't.
I thought it was going to fly out again.
Yeah.
That happened earlier.
Okay. Ooh, and you got the Knight of Skins. So this deck is like non-traditional in terms of how it uses the elements. So I'll explain that a little bit before I go into my interpretation. But the skin suit in this deck is like snake skin. So it's talking about, and it's associated with the element of fire. So fire is about transformation, release, purging, cleansing, purifying, and passion. And passion can be misunderstood the same way that a snake would be. And so Knight of Skins, this is talking about someone who is really full of willpower, strength, that's able to also pursue something. And I'd say, since I know you somewhat, that this is about knowledge and passion and also innovation. So I also like that, since all three of us are Leos, we all just had birthdays. This is emphasizing that sun energy, the fire energy, and the desire to help others transform. So the knight is like a champion, somebody who, fights for a cause, who brings in this energy of, desire and yeah, pursuit. I don't want to repeat myself too much, but I do feel like this is true. And on the card, it shows that this person has their mouth covered or their face covered. So I feel like there's something around transforming the way that you communicate, the way that you speak or present yourself at this time. It's something that's developing for you. And I feel like we're seeing that being showcased, because I don't know if you've ever been super like, displayed your astrology studies, but I feel like this is something that you're being mindful about how and when you share, and also maybe that goes into other areas of your life too. But something that I'm also noticing about this person is that they look like they're enjoying themselves too. They're wearing like kind of a more like sensual outfit. So I feel like, Rebecca, there's something about how you are, where you like to bring others into your enjoyment and share in the things that bring you happiness, and that um, that others can join like your philosophical train of thought and contribute and light, bring that light in and illuminate, because this person's also holding two like wands that are on fire, and it's like the old leaves that are burning away. So it's like you're using that joy to bring in something new. Do you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I think that's so interesting, especially with that card in particular, because when I was listening to that, the very spot on in terms of like being displayed with this like new form of communication. That's something that I have been personally developing, but also just like socially speaking. So that's really excellent to hear. That's very on brand, very spot on, especially with like the Leo and Aqua opposition. That contrast is really interesting because I have a Leo stellium in the 11th house as well, which is Aquarius. So yeah, that's something that I always tend to really embody. Just kind of like just sharing that philosophy and education, whether that be through like all subjects and disciplines. So that's really interesting to hear, especially with that consideration of just like socializing with people. And that's something that I really tend to really embody in terms of like explicating new forms of ideas, new innovations, new notions in mind. And I always like to kind of share that and just kind of um, share and also provide guidance and new knowledge and just educate others while I'm also kind of reciprocating that when they kind of give me that too. So I think that's really excellent, very spot on. And of course, with that, I'm like a lot of like fury energy. That right there is something that myself and other like Leo placements in particular are kind of experiencing that with that igniting passion that kind of serves as this like fueling factor, especially with Leo kind of being the sign that is really like caring and giving towards others, as that kind of also takes on the traits of Aquarius. Like I was emphasizing that humanitarian aspect. So that right there is really fulfilling. So I love to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah, don't you have an Aries moon in Vedic too?
Tropical Aries and my sidereal is Pisces, but it is in the same range of Aries. So I do have that like Aryan energy as well.
Yeah, because I was feeling that Aries, like, let's go, like, let's blaze a new trail energy from this card so much, and from what you're talking about with education and service and things like that. So,
Yeah, 100%. Thank you.
yeah, and I guess I'll get one for myself.
Yeah.
But this interpretation is just going to be me talking about it.
Yes, okay.
Okay, ooh, intense. I got the death card. So my signifier here, I've never gotten the death card as a signifier, but I really like this depiction because it shows someone who's looking through the wings, or like just beyond the wings of this dove. And I do feel like I am somebody that does try and bring peace and connection And I feel like the death card is a transitional card. It's not a literal death most of the time, although I am interested in lots of things that have to do with literal death, and crossing into the spirit realm. But I do feel like I'm somebody that's continually experiencing a lot of change. I don't like to really stay the same. I like to constantly be growing and transforming, and death is all about when we truly embrace life and we recognize that our mortality is in every moment. So I really like this card coming out. That's kind of intense, but maybe I'm a very intense person. So
I like
um,
that.
I do like
Um,
that this figure is veiled because I am a little bit private. So what were you gonna say, Rebecca?
what was I gonna say? Yeah, that's I always associate that card with a lot of like Martian energy, and I believe the full moon is transiting your eighth house, which is kind of around. Yeah, right. That's really cool. So, for me, when I saw that card for you, I interpreted it as that notion of like transformation, and with that full moon kind of impacting that. I really feel like with the kind of like just looking at that card, that was a beautiful card, by the way. That contrast of just like the colors, looking into that, because a lot of Martian is I really associate Scorpio with that like kind of like gloomy color of like purple, but like bluish. But it's also cool because it's something that they always encounter. A lot of not necessarily hardship, but I would say something that is kind of like serving as an obstacle, but it's like kind of navigating through that in a manner where it's like you're still going to be on top of things. So that's something that can be really like illuminating for you. And I love to see that because that yeah, that, like, bird right there, see how it's, like, really bright and, like, white represents, like, purity, so I really feel like you are able to see and make peace with things just for, just kinda seeing everything for what it is, kinda navigating that very thoroughly and efficiently, so I really like to see that. It's really cool, especially with the full moon kinda, supporting you in a way where it's allowing you to showcase that and highlight that with the power of the moon's illumination, with that accompany of that like scorpion, like Martian energy, which is fantastic. I love to hear that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and in case you don't know, the death card is traditionally ruled by Scorpio. That's why Rebecca's talking about scorpionic energy being infused in this. But also, Scorpio rules the eighth house where the full moon is happening for me personally. So that's a really cool connection. And no wonder why this came out then. So I really like that you pointed that out. And also, if you are participating and you're wanting to find your own signifier for this full moon, um, just know that once you separate out the cards, all you got to do is shuffle and it'll come out. And most tarot decks, this one doesn't have a guidebook with it. I think it's like an ebook, but most decks will have a guidebook. And so that will help you with your reading if you're not super confident doing it the way that we just did, like, bare bones. But yeah, I hope that that was helpful. And I'm really happy that I was able to teach you guys. Thanks again to Lexi for teaching me this method. Otherwise, I think we're coming up on our time.
Yes.
So, is there anything else?
There's also cards for if you're like a beginner. There's cards that have like a little snippet of what the card could mean. Now, it doesn't have all the meanings on the cards because each card can have like 30 different meanings because the colors and everything, and then it depends on the deck, and so it gets really complicated. But it just has like a little snapshot of what it could mean on some of the cards that you can buy like that on Amazon or wherever you can buy those kind of cards from. I don't have anything else to say, but happy full moon. Enjoy yourself out there and be safe because the emergency room gets kind of full on the full moon. So be safe out there. And Rebecca, do you have anything you wanted to add?
No, I think what we covered was really excellent provided guidance. So I think that for sure for those that are watching to really like take that and kind of apply it, that knowledge elsewhere with like other transits. It's not solely just the full moon, new moon, it can be any transit to put that into practice. But yes, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys for also kind of allowing me to kind of collaborate with you guys. That was amazing. Thank you very much.
Sending everyone love. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.